That's
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Test. Microphone check.
Justin in test.
Big on savings, big on service, big on community. If it's sports in the Lake Martin area, we cover it. The Lake Martin Sports Roundup, right now.
Good Tuesday evening out there to everybody, and welcome into the Lake Martin Sports Roundup presented by Bland Insurance Group. Brett Pritchard and Scott Hardy here at JR Sports Bar and Grill on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Been overcast most all day, but then the clouds broke off, and Scott, a beautiful afternoon out there, and a lot of people coming in and out, a ton of people coming in and out of JR Sports Bar and Grill tonight. So we're glad to see that. Of course, always supporting everything that we do. Our major corporate sponsor here, JR Sports Bar and Grill. And make sure you come out here and get you some great food at any point in time. It doesn't necessarily have to be tonight if you can't make it by, but most people in Alexander City at some point in time make it by. But we want to encourage everybody that's not in this community to come by and try this great food out as well. And kids eat off the kids' menu for $1.99 every day when they wear their uniforms, their youth league uniforms. So, Scott, good to see you. Everybody will have a 3-hour dose of us tonight as you and I will do this show and then head over to Sports Blitz Live for 2 hours. But we're excited about it, and one of the things that is so good about this show, Scott, is that we have an opportunity to talk about everything that goes on in this area. The Sports Blitz show is a more nationwide, more regional type show that we talk about pretty much everything, but we keep it right here in the Lake Martin area on this show, and we got a lot to talk about tonight, and a lot of good things to highlight as always about local people that have gone on and done tremendous things, people that we felt like we knew would represent this community really well, and that's the case tonight. That's our headline tonight is Griff Gordon and the Jacksonville State Gamecocks and what they've been able to do and what he's been able to do in his career since he's moved on from Southern Union and had a great 2 years there, and then he's had an outstanding 2 years at Jacksonville State.
Yeah, and excuse me, as you said, we're fresh off an opportunity now to congratulate him on being selected all-conference in the OVC. That's Ohio Valley Conference. He was one of 5 Jacksonville State players to be able to do so, but I want you to listen to these senior numbers that he had. He batted .372. He led his team in games started with 61, 96 hits, 29 walks, and an on-base percentage of .446 and 7 home runs. And during conference play, a .416 average, 3 doubles, 4 triples, 6 home runs, 28 RBIs in OVC games. And so you're looking at now, that was one of the main reasons why they were able to be so successful. Every week it seems like when we would take an opportunity to discuss the Lake Martin area athletes, his name was a mainstay, not only because he was from the area, but because he was so consistently good. As long as I've been watching Griff play baseball, going back to his high school days, he's always been able to hit. Went over, goes to Southern Union, all conference there, and now doing the same thing now. So he propelled his team, Jacksonville State, and they go on to win the Ohio Valley Conference Championship, and he received those honors, and now they will go ahead and go in and play in the NCAA tournament. They'll be a number 4 seed in the Oxford Regional. They'll take on Ole Miss, and then that's also Georgia Tech and Washington. But again, a great season. .372 batting average. That's unreal.
Yeah, tremendous player all the way around. He is, he's a guy that carries the banner for Alexander City and was a tremendous player at Benjamin Russell, and then moved on, as I said, to Southern Union. And now look at what you just read off and what he's been able to accomplish at Jacksonville State. And he is one of the main reasons why they got a berth into the regional tournament here coming up. And I'm gonna tell you, looking down the regionals and what their draw is, they've got a good program, and this is not undoable for them to come out of this. I wouldn't be shocked if they did at all, Scott. I mean, Ole Miss, we know is a very good team. The SEC, we'll talk about that a little bit later on, had a high of 10 teams in it. That tells you something about Auburn's program. When they had a 10 teams making it into the NCAA tournament, and Auburn's not one of them. So that's a story for later on Sports Blitz Live. But you got Ole Miss, which was an up and down team all year. They're definitely a beatable team, and I know it's at Oxford, but Georgia Tech, they're a 3 seed in Washington, having to come all the way across the country. That's going to wear on them a little bit. I think it sets up perfect because I've seen some of these other regionals set up, and they're a lot tougher regionals after. Not taking anything away, because Georgia Tech and Ole Miss are always very good programs, but I'm telling you, it sets up pretty doggone good for Jacksonville State to go in there and make some noise.
Yeah, and they've played some teams, some common teams that'll be in the NCAA tournament this year, or that made the regional, and although they weren't successful, the games were very close. I know in 2 of the games against Alabama, I think it was 11-9 and maybe 9-6. So they were in games when they played, and they were lost late. But their ability to hit the ball, I think, will be what keeps them in most of their games. As you said, as we listed, there's 5 all-conference players from that team. So I was looking at the stats. You had 4 people who were batting .340 or higher that had at least 5 home runs. They had a really good hitting team. So if their pitching can match in the right situation, then they have an opportunity, as you said, to go ahead and advance.
Well, I remember a few years ago when Jacksonville State came to Auburn, and they went in there and won. The first game against Auburn, they drew them out. I think Auburn was actually a 2 seed in their own regional, and Jacksonville State was the 3 seed, and Jacksonville State beat them and on the opening game. So you never know. I like their chances. I think they've got a very good program, as you said. We tried to have Griff on tonight, but some other obligations they had to take care of. But hopefully we're having him on later on after they win the Oxford Regional and move on. And again, a lot of players from this area that have been able to do things. Another former Wildcat and Kendall Grayman, and we'll talk about later on. But that going along the same lines, this baseball program here at Benjamin Russell, the baseball program at Dayville, the baseball programs in this area have been able to produce some good talent, and they move on and either play here at Central Alabama or Southern Union, or they either make it to a 4-year college and Montevallo, Jacksonville State, wherever it might be, and represent very well. So one of the things that we'll do is we'll kind of go off of a little bit of local here, and we'll run down the regionals for everybody, because I know there's a lot of interest out there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But we will cover a lot of local stuff here. Again, we want to congratulate here on this opening segment Griff Gordon on being named to the All OVC Conference team, and well deserved. Played extremely well. Did a a tremendous job his whole time up there, and he's still got business to take care of as he's got his team in the NCAA regional at Oxford. And again, those teams that are in that regional are teams that teams that they can definitely beat. And I'm not saying they can beat on anybody in the tournament any given day, but I do like how that sets up for them. And, they don't have to travel that far. And I need to talk about that as well. You look at Washington having to come all the way across the country as a 2 seed. Jacksonville State's a 4 seed, and that is not a tough trip at all, Scott. I mean, just a few hours over to Oxford, Mississippi from Jacksonville State, and so it's very convenient for their fans and the people that want to go follow them over there to Oxford. And I think it sets up. I don't think they could have asked, if they had to pull out of a hat a location to go to, I don't think they could ask for a better location.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, excuse me, as you said, the fan base being able to travel over, I had an opportunity to see some pictures from the weekend and just the crowd that was there from different games during the OVC tournament. And the fan base for Jacksonville State is very avid, and they want to be there. And so, as you said, you'll have an opportunity for them to make the trip over if they choose to do so. But this is when it matters. This is when records don't matter, seeding it has no bearing on the game. In baseball and this type of format, the right pitching situation or the right hitter being hot can definitely carry on, as we've seen in previous tournaments.
Absolutely. And, we'll take your calls tonight, 256-234-6221 to be part of the program here locally. And we'll take your calls here on the Late Martin Sports Roundup. It's all-star time, and as we speak, I was going to be over there picking all-stars, but I'm here at the show tonight and for the 9-year-olds and everybody, all the different age groups picking their all-stars now. And so here locally, the softball and baseball teams getting ready to represent this community in district and state tournaments, hopefully, as they move on. And we've always had a great history of that, and I know it's just that time of year where all the communities are doing that. And when we come back, we'll talk some more about that, some other things going on locally here in the Lake Martin area, the tennis clinic that'll be coming up. We'll talk about that. We'll run down these regionals here for everybody as we continue to talk about Griff Gordon making the All-OVC conference team and what he helped his Gamecocks get to this season. Stay tuned. More of the Lake Martin Sports Roundup presented by the Bland Insurance Group coming your way right after this. Ready.
10 seconds.
I don't know why when we get on here we start getting freaking throat starts.
Every time.
Clearing the dang throat. Boy.
3, 2, 1. Take it away.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Lake Martin Sports Roundup presented by the Bland Insurance Group and Alliant Bank. Is Alliant Bank now on as one of our presenting sponsors here on the Lake Martin Sports Roundup. So we're glad to have Alliant Bank as part of this program as well. So, again, give us a call, 256-234-6221 to be part of the program. And, again, we'd love to see you come in here to JR Sports Bar and Grill, as they do such a great job and give you a lot of options on the menu. Scott, you and I never have a hard time picking out something that's really, really good on this menu, but you usually go back to the old reliable.
Yeah.
You know, people, well, that's most people. You know, most people have their favorite, so it's hard to break out of that. Once you find something that's real good, I mean, why try something else? But Scott, I want to go back real quick and talk about these NCAA regional berths. As I have no idea what's going on with my boys right now. I was talking perfectly fine until walked in and hung out with you for a little while, and then just went away. But anyway, the NCAA regional sites were named. Again, we just talked about Jacksonville State being able to move on and play in the Oxford Regional, and we'll talk more about that. Our very own Griff Gordon, congratulations again. We'll continue to highlight him through this program because what a great job he's done and moved on and made the OVC all OVC team. But 10 SEC teams in this tournament, Auburn is not one of those teams. Kendall Graveman pitched for Mississippi State last year, was a big part of why they went to the College World Series and played for the national championship in that series, unable to get it done. And come away with a win, but Mississippi State back in it as a number 2 seed. They'll travel to Louisiana Lafayette, which has a tremendous record, 52 wins on the season. So Mississippi State as a number 2 seed in that Louisiana Lafayette regional. Again, Ole Miss as a number 1 seed. So is South Carolina. They will host a regional. Arkansas ends up being a number 2 seed at the Virginia regional. Virginia, one of the top 8 seeds in the country. Miami, Florida, hosting a regional as well. Florida gets a number 1 seed or gets a number 1 seed in their own regional in Gainesville. To me, I like their regional. North Carolina, Long Beach State, and College of Charleston. I see Florida moving on to a super regional there. And then Indiana, one of the top teams in the country, they host a regional. Vanderbilt gets to host another regional, and they are the number 1 seed. Louisville, the number 1 seed in their regional, and they draw Kentucky, who has gotten hot all of a sudden, and leave it to Auburn to make somebody hot. They were down 5-0 in that Sunday game to Auburn, and they came back and won. And since then, they've been on a tear, almost made a run through the SEC tournament and found a way to win the thing. And so they get a number 2 seed with their late surge, and they'll play Louisville. And, you know, right now the way they're playing, it's going to be a good shot. Alabama drew out the Tallahassee Regional. They'll go to Florida State. That's where Auburn always ends up when they get in a regional, it seems like. So they send Alabama there. They've got Georgia Southern, Kennesaw State, and Florida State in that regional. Hey, look, Alabama didn't play real well coming down the stretch, but, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama went down there and made some noise in that regional, Scott.
Yeah, and the thing is, in these types of situations, even if you talk about Mississippi State, 2 years ago, before they made the run to the World Series, they had an opportunity. They got out of the region. They were number 3 seed, and the drawing went right with who they got their first matchup. And from that point on, some things happened, and they had an opportunity to go on, and they ended up making the World Series. So it's another chance to see it. As long as you're getting another chance to play and you can extend your season, makes you play a little bit better, and especially in baseball. If you have a dominant pitcher, some of these small schools that are maybe a 3rd or 4th seed maybe struggle, but have strong enough pitching to go outside and maybe face some of these tough opponents that normally they may not have would have.
You know, LSU, you don't ever want to go to Baton Rouge in the postseason, and they're hosting another regional, and they've got Southeastern Louisiana, Bryant, and Houston. So I think it shapes up really well for them. And then Rice hosting a regional. They've got Texas A&M, Texas, George Mason in their regional, and the last 2 remaining regionals out there, Oklahoma State up in Corvallis. They host. They've got Cal State, Fullerton, Nebraska, and Binghamton in their regional, and then Oregon State. That's actually Corvallis, Oregon State. Oklahoma State also hosting a regional as well. And that's all your regional hosts there. Again, 10 SEC teams, a good number of 1 seeds, and hosting regionals there. So almost a sixth of the tournament right there is SEC teams. So that just tells you about, once again, the strength of this conference.
Football school. I mean, it's football conference, and that is something people like to look at. But if you look at across the board at all sports, the SEC predominantly dominates every one of them. They're going to put the majority of the teams in. It's just what happens. And so this is another example, as you said, 10 teams. And, again, that's just an indictment of how terrible Auburn had to play if you couldn't even get in with the 10. But, again, that's just something we'll have to look forward to discussing.
Well, you'll go back and look at that series with Missouri, and that tells the tale. They had an opportunity to do something special. They had a lot of momentum. They had the worst team in the league coming into town. They lost 2 or 3. So when that happens, that sent Auburn on a spiral they never could recover from. Okay, they actually went on the road and got a big series win against Arkansas, but outside of that was the lone highlight of that whole coming down the stretch for Auburn. So that's kind of where it sits. But one thing that I just thought about, Scott, and the SEC is dominant, but for the first time in my recent memory, Auburn played for the football championship, lost. Mississippi State played for the baseball championship, lost. And Kentucky played for the basketball championship, lost. So the SEC had a representation in all 3 major sports, and they didn't win any of them. So, they had a big run there in football. Auburn couldn't get it done the last minute and 14 seconds. I think Kentucky just was outmatched a little bit in the basketball. And Mississippi State, they took it down to the wire. And baseball is such a funny sport, and they couldn't get over the hump. So many things have to go right in baseball for
Kendall didn't get a chance.
He didn't get a chance to throw, and if they could have just gotten to that next game against UCLA, it would have been never know what would have happened. We would all have loved to have seen that opportunity. But the SEC, regardless of losing, they're there every time. They're in it every time, and when you get 10 teams in it, your odds and your chances are that much greater than everybody else's of making it. They're getting it somebody there. So I remember when I was at Auburn, and this to me still is one of the most unbelievable things. And in the SEC Western Division, 4 teams from the SEC Western Division made the College World Series. So 4 teams from that division of one conference were in the 18 tournament in Omaha. Could have finished 4th in your division and still made it to the College World Series. That tells you how tough the Western Division was that year and how tough the SEC's been as a whole. But, again, there's your regionals. Again, Jacksonville State, led by Griff Gordon. It's safe to say led by him because he was a huge part of why they were doing what they did all year. They make it into the Oxford Regional. They'll be over there at Ole Miss playing. They'll actually take on Ole Miss in the first game, but Georgia Tech, Washington also in that regional. And I feel good about their chances. They don't have to travel a lot. On the flip side, the number 2 seed Washington has to come all the way across the country. So I like that opportunity right there. And this team obviously has got a lot of great players on it. Obviously, you wouldn't be in the situation you would be in if you didn't. So like their chances in Oxford. I don't think, again, to repeat myself from the first segment, they had an opportunity to pick out of a hat where they'd like to go. I don't think they could have chosen anywhere any better. So Scott's going to be interesting to follow. And when we come back here on the Lake Martin Sports Roundup, presented by Bland Insurance Group and Alliant Bank, we're going to talk about some more local stuff that's going on. The spring game at Horseshoe Bend. I know you guys talked about Benjamin Russell last week and also had Kevin Kill on to talk about Dable. We don't want to slight the Generals. They had a very good spring game against 2 opponents in a jamboree style. We'll come back. We'll talk about that here on the Lake Martin Sports Roundup. So stay tuned. More to come right after this.
All right.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, take it away.
Welcome back to the Lake Martin Sports Roundup Show presented by Bland Insurance Group and Hawaiian Bank. So, again, we want to thank our sponsors here. Each and every time we're on the air, we can't do it without our sponsors, Scott. And, again, a lot going on here in the local area. And talked about spring football last week, talked about Benjamin Russell, and talked about Dable. Horseshoe Bend just right up the road here in New Site. And it went pretty well. They're changing things up there. And Coach Jason Franklin shifting out of a spread formation type offense to a wing T offense. So that's a drastic change for his players, his coaching staff, and that's a whole different learning system for everybody. And they won 7-0 when they played Beulah, and followed it up with a 15-0 win over Winterboro in the nightcap. So you know, I don't see anything else you could have asked for when you implement a new offense. You don't expect a lot of points to go up. You got to rely on your defense to get the football to your offense. It's more of a clock controlling offense, and that's what happened with a 15-0, 7-0 score against Winterboro, who just a couple years ago went 3 or 4 rounds deep in the playoffs, and a very, very talented team always. And talked to Jason Franklin about Beulah, and he said that they had some really good talent as well. And so pitched 2 shutouts there in their spring game last week. And, Coach Franklin was very complimentary. He said overall it was a great team effort on both sides of the ball. He said he didn't really want to single anybody out. It was an entire defensive effort on the defensive side of the ball. He said we worked together, and he said they looked good doing it. The offensive line did a good job opening up the holes, and the running backs did a good job of hitting the holes and making positive yards. So with that being said, making a transition into a new offense, and being at this stage of them really just now learning that, those are very positive comments to build on heading into fall.
Yeah, and if you go back to last season, a lot of the games that they lost weren't because they didn't have – it was basically because they couldn't control the ball. And so looking at it now, this helps a team like that where they don't – defensively, they were pretty good, that they just lost it toward the end some. So in a ball-controlled offense, I think it helps them out more because it puts them in less positions for their margin of error is a little bit better in this type of offense than last year. So I love the move to this because they were a physical team, but offensively they needed something to counteract what was happening to them, and so now I think they found that.
You got to be able to hold on to the football sometimes and grind it out, and sometimes your best defense is a good ball control offense, and that helps them out a lot there and takes time off the clock. Coach Franklin went on to say that the team has taken – well to each other. They lost some pretty talented guys on there, having to replace a quarterback and Major Abernathy. And, anytime you're trying to replace quarterbacks or key position players like that, then, there's some growing pains that you got to go through. And, he said, but, they've taken well to each other. They get along well. They're becoming more cohesive. Those are the words that you want to hear because it's all about chemistry in football and how the players take to each other and how they feed off of one another. And, another thing that you look at is, is this something that we can teach these linemen, because it's so crucial up front that offensive linemen know how to run this wing T offense, because if they're not pulling and the ball fakes aren't right in the backfield, it's really, for lack of better terms, it's a non-existent offense. If you can't get those things right, then you can't move the ball at all. So it's all of the fakes, pulling those out, selling those things, being able to complete passes when you do throw out on a wing T is a definite run first offense, probably a 75-80% run. But when you do get a team biting up and you do have that opportunity to hit a big play, when you got them sold in and then it's time to hit that pass, are you up to the challenge to be able to hit that pass? And I used to watch Reeltown and Dable on Thursday night, and Reeltown would lull you to sleep with that wing T offense, and then all of a sudden they'd run a bootleg out of it, and there'd be a guy wide open 60, 70 yards downfield, and he'd hit him, and they'd get a score out of it. So, if they can do those things right, I think Horseshoe Bend's got a good chance this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and you look at a team, like a coach like Danny Horn before coming here at Clay County, the exact same way. With
the wishbone.
With the wishbone, yeah. So if you have if you don't necessarily have the same athletes as your competition, you have to combat that. And so I think that what Horseshoe Bend has done is decided to make a change based on the personnel that they have. And defensively, I think they'll be fine because they stayed in a lot of the games. What happened mainly was that the offense, as you said, you can't turn the ball over. And so their defense was having to go out so much. But they were in a lot of games going into the fourth quarter. So if they're able to keep it close and, as you said, take advantage of the opportunities when they're presented to them, they have an opportunity to change some things around. I know that fan base is eager to look at them and have a successful program and hopefully get into the postseason play.
256-234-6221. If you'd like to add a comment or you got a question about anything going on in the local area, and you ask, you shall receive. And we do have a phone call. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, go ahead. You're on the Lake Martin Sports Roundup. Caller, you there with us? Hey, Brian, what's up? You think Alabama's going to make it to the Super Regional in baseball? Yeah, and like we just said, I mean, I think they can go down and compete with Florida State as the number 2 seed in that regional, and we'll see how it all plays out. Elmore County did what now? Shut out Marbury, 21-0. Well, good job, Brian. We appreciate the update, okay? Thank you so much. And Elmore County, which is just down the road as well. I actually talked to their principal, Wes Rogers, and he talked about them playing Marbury in their spring game, and they look pretty good. And so that's good to hear. And as we're talking about Horseshoe Bend here, and, it's a good thing that you get to hear, that these teams around here or had positive springs. It may not have turned out exactly like the coaches wanted them to. I know Benjamin Russell's got a ton of guys to replace that were key contributors, especially Brian Horn. But, you don't necessarily go into a spring game a lot of times trying to put a ton of points on the board or do you use that time to find out who's going to be your next group of playmakers. And I think that's where Benjamin Russell is. But over on the Horseshoe Bend General side of things, he continues to talk on there and said that, Generals appear to have quarterback position. They have an issue at the quarterback position because they're trying to replace Major Abernathy. I want to say Major Applewhite, but it's not Major Applewhite. But Major Abernathy, quarterback, that's the same situation that Benjamin Russell's going through. It's a guy that's Davil's going through the same thing. So with CJ being gone, so when you're trying to change that signal caller, it can pose some issues for you.
Yeah, and as you said, a lot of teams in our surrounding, I can't say about real time, but 3 of the 4 teams that we cover in this county are going through a quarterback transition, and they're losing a lot of guys, both offensively and defensively. On the Dable side, you have C.J. Talbert, and you losing him, and then you also have Jay Foster. Those guys, the kids that have a all-state linebacker that they lose. Ben Russell loses, Tobias Russell, Brian Horn, other players, and Horseshoe Bend having to replace a quarterback in a brand-new system. So that may be the one positive in it, is that he has a clean slate, and so everybody's learning that at the same pace. But, again, when you're going through this type of transition, there could be some bumps in the road, and there will be, but I think they have an opportunity to really change some things around.
Drew Hill and Red Lewis, Coach Franklin said that both of them look real comfortable taking snaps, and he said both of them did a good job of leading and executing and getting us lined up right. And he said right now there's no clear-cut leader. We're going to carry that over into fall practice and let it work itself out. So, hey, you know what? I think a lot of times, quarterback battle can be extremely healthy for your program. It can be a situation where, competition creates that aggressiveness and that will to kind of come together and win. So, 2 guys, necessarily not having a quarterback means you don't have one. I know you hear that all the time, but it means that you got 2 guys that you're really relying on, and at any moment the other one could be the starter. So you got to know that going in. You got to have that preparation as we go in. But that's the Horseshoe Bend Generals in their spring game, a 15-0 win over Winterboro and a 7-0 win over Beulah. So just a good opportunity there for Horseshoe Bend General fans to really look forward to the football season. But we're up against another break. When we come back, Sky, we'll talk about some tennis here in the local area. So stay tuned. More of the Lake Martin Sports Roundup presented by Bland Insurance Group and Alliant Bank right after this.
Okay, I'm sorry. 3, 2, 1, take it away.
All right, welcome back in, and thanks for joining the Lake Martin Sports Roundup Show, presented to you each and every Tuesday by Bland Insurance Group and Alliant Bank. We want to thank them for being such great sponsors to us, as well as JR Sports Bar and Grill, always there for us and providing us the opportunity to have the show. We have a couple of announcements we need to make. We have a Dream Big Baseball Camp June 19th through June 20th, 2014. 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It'll be over at Sportz, fields 1 through 4, ages 8 to 15 years old. Cost is $60. We have a list of instructors here. You have the head instructor will be Scott Tubbs. He's a Selma native, assistant head coach at Edgewood Academy. You also will have Jeremy Carter, current head coach at Morgan Academy, and Terrence Long, former first-round draft pick of the New York Mets. And he, again, is someone who, being from the Stanhope area, someone that people in this community have an opportunity to see. But again, each child is required to wear an appropriate baseball attire, and each camper will receive some type of autographed memorabilia. So again, this is something that the Dream Big Camp that will be set up through the city will have an opportunity to see that. You can make your checks payable to Scott Tubbs. Again, that's Scott Tubbs, 334-399-8834. That's June 19th and June 20th. And we also have a basketball announcement as well. We'll take an opportunity to look at that. The Sorrel basketball camps, Benjamin Russell High School, July 12th, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. You'll have Levi Randolph of University of Alabama, Jimmy Taylor, and Shannon Hill, as well as Andrew Steele, former Alabama player, and Dave Dascadano, former Division I basketball player. That will be July 12th, 12 to 3 p.m., and you can contact us if you have an opportunity to, and we can give you some more information. Ooh, a lot there.
Yeah, a lot of information there, but a good job there. And then, have you talked about tennis yet, Scott?
We did not
step away. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. We didn't have an opportunity to, but as you said, a junior rec.
Junior team tennis registration now open. It's been going on. Said any youngsters interested in getting introduced to tennis have their chance to do so through the Alexander City Community Tennis Association. And basically the tournament has 4 age groups: 18U, 14U, 12U, and 10U. In round-robin rules, and participants will be able to practice and play matches according to CTA event coordinator and Benjamin Russell's girls tennis coach, Tony Franklin. Said it's a program designed to get kids who are interested in tennis involved, and said it's a good way to start out if you're interested in tennis but have never played. You're out there learning with friends, and everybody likes team sports. Tennis is typically an individual sport, and this helps you put more of a team twist on it. So, tennis players at Ben Russell and Alexander City Middle School started out in this program, and Franklin said the results were very clear, how it helped them. And so, right now, kind of go through it. It's dirt cheap. What he said is $40 for a 6-week course. He said, we're not in this to make money. We just want to make it easy as we can to get the kids out and play. For all of those of you that are interested out there, contact Coach Franklin at 256-496-2148, 256-496-2148, and that's the junior teen tennis registration that is now open, that is going on. And, again, $40 for a 6-week course, man, that's nothing.
Well, I love what the city is doing. We just mentioned a basketball, baseball, and a tennis camp going on during the summer, so there's going to be activities, and they are geared toward youth, and that's what we want to have happen, because if you have a youth program that's strong, then it's only going to help build the foundation for them as they get older. Then we'll have middle school and then high school. They're already prepared, especially in your secondary sports outside of football, getting them involved. Tennis, golf, any of those things. Wrestling just got some new mats, so everybody's making strides to try to change some of the culture around here, and I love to see it, because the community will support when there's someone to be supported. So if you want your kids to go out and play, there's opportunities for them to get involved this summer.
256-234-6221 to be part of the program. And, again, so much stuff going on here in the local area. Scott, I don't know if last week that you guys highlighted some of the stuff that's going on, but we've had several kids in this area that have signed, scholarships and done some good things and moved on and are going to represent this area. And did y'all talk about Deion Maxwell signing with Huntington?
We didn't have an opportunity to, but again, that's just another Wildcat who
who's going to have an opportunity to go play on the collegiate level. He was one of the best wrestlers on the team, and so you have he as well as Austin Munkus, who we didn't get a chance. Dre Graham, he's going to Faulkner. So all these late signings that we didn't necessarily hear about early in February are now going on to different sports. And so I'm glad to see that Benjamin Russell is putting guys and girls on the next level.
No doubt about it. And again, Deion Maxwell, one of the integral pieces of the wrestling program the last few years, and dominated as a 170 pounder, and signed with Huntington. Which set for their inaugural wrestling season. And so he's excited about that. A great education he'll get down there at Huntington College as well. And, that this just sets the bar for future wrestlers. When you start getting some of your players recognized and get them signed and move on into college, then that sets the road for other players and other wrestlers behind you that can look up to you and see what he did. So, but as a senior, Deion was 40-11, finished ranked number 2 in Class 5A at the 170-pound mark, and he had some other schools, Shorter University, AUM, looked at him, but eventually signed with Huntington. And, he went on to say, I think a lot. I think I can add a lot to the team. I'm glad it's a first-year program so I can help build a foundation. So he'll get to look back on this years down the line and say, look, I was on the very first wrestling team at Huntington College, and, and that's special. That's a big mark. So once again, kids from around this area, putting the benchmark on things for other programs in college.
And two, you look at the women's golf team at Benjamin Russell, only 4 years in, and now what do? They send Mackenzie Chapman. She now will be going to play at Huntington as well. So again, a lot of our kids are going to play at the next level. And so that's what speaking of Sean Bland, when he was on earlier in the fall, we talked about what we could do to make sure that when signing day happened, Benjamin Russell would have 20, 25 kids. And so now overall the numbers look like there's at least 15 to 18 different people who will be going to play at the next level. So that's all you can really ask for, especially when they're not only doing it athletically but academically as well.
Yeah, 256-234-6221 to be part of the program. We're going to take another break here on the Lake Martin Sports Roundup. And, Scott, I'm going to give it to you and let you run down kind of a recap of everything we talked about. So we've had so much that we talked about here tonight. Again, we want to congratulate Griff Gordon on his being named to the OVC all-tournament team or all-team in the OVC, and some of his accolades. You'll run down some Kendall Grayman's stats as he continues to do well in minor leagues. I'll head over and get ready for Sports Blitz Live. Scott, you'll be joining me after the first segment over there. So a busy night for us, and we're excited about it. I want you to stay tuned right here. One more segment coming your way right after this.
10 seconds. Three, two, one, take it away.
Welcome back in, and thanks for joining the Lake Martin Sports Roundup show. We're in the last segment of tonight's activities, and we've had a great show. Brett and I have had an opportunity to discuss a lot of area sports because that's what this show is about. We had an opportunity to break down the Horseshoe Bend spring game and how things are going for them. They will be transitioning from the spread offense that they've run for the last several years to now a wing tee offense. They had a shutout in both of their both of their spring games that they played, and so it's good to see them making that transition, and so hopefully good luck to them this fall. And we also want to say congratulations to Griff Gordon for being named All-Conference OVC. And again, this is someone who every Tuesday we've had the opportunity to just highlight what type of stats he's had, and so a couple of more that we didn't have an opportunity to talk about earlier in the show was that during this season, he was the sixth best player in the conference, had 96 hits, and was second in the OVC. An on-base percentage that ranked fourth. His 7 triples were tied for second in the OVC, and he racked up the seventh most total bases in the conference. And so not only was he able to do it at the plate, in the field, excellent right fielder, only committed 2 errors and 120 chances. That's a fielding percentage of .983. So, again, Griff Gordon put together one of the best seasons in conference. Again, his on-base percentage was 6th best. He was just always on base, and so someone who tries his best to keep people off of base. We'll transition over to Kendall Graveman, who, again, someone who has been lighting it up here. His first 4 starts with the Lansing Lugnuts provided him with the chance to be moved up to high A ball for the Dundon Blue Jays. And so we'll talk about his latest start, May the 22nd. 5.2 innings. He was able to get the win. He gave up 4 runs, but only 3 were earned. And so, again, that type of game raises ERA to 3.38. But prior to that, he hadn't given up more than 2 runs in each of his last 5 starts. So congratulations to him as well. And so, as we said, we want to congratulate Mackenzie Chapman as well. The golf team finished 4th in state, and she was such an integral part of that success. And so I know that Coach Mandy Durr will have a hard time replacing her and her leadership. I was there from the beginning when the program first was incepted. So, again, just congratulations to them. And so we want to let you know that if there's anything going on, as we said, we've highlighted different camps that will be going on, tennis, soccer, anything related to what you want to talk about, let us know, and we'll make sure it gets taken care of. For Brett Pritchard, I'm Scott Hardy saying thank you for joining the Late Morning Sports Roundup show. We'll see you next week.
You're clear.
Appreciate it.